The Ibn Ezra brings down in the pasuk of Lahagid, Ba'boiker chastecha v'yamonoscha ba'leilos. The Ibn Ezra brings down what's Lahagid, to say over. So Ibn Ezra teaches, he explains that it means L'lamed la'acherim chastecha lo'idiyam, to tell over to other people, to teach others the chesed of Hashem lo'idiyam, to let them know, to inform them. I feel like that's what I'm doing up here. That I should be able to give over, whatever I can. The Ba'boiker chastecha and the Yamonoscha ba'leilos. That has been the story of this experience. And that's what we're here for tonight, really. Lahagid Ba'boiker chastecha v'yamonoscha ba'leilos. Mitzvah dvar mayotzim alev nechnasim alev mitzvah. First, I wanted to talk about the Ba'boiker chastecha, the chesed that we had. Usually we teach Lahagid Ba'boiker chastecha v'yamonoscha ba'leilos is that there's times of boiker and there's chesed, and there's times of Lail and there's Amunah, and the two separate times. But I feel like over here, there's in this whole experience of the Petira of Shifra Kela, they're both in there together. The whole experience was Ba'boiker chastecha. We saw a lot of chesed, little things that occurred beforehand, leading up to it, that we saw afterwards, the chesed. There's a tremendous chesed, almost a nace, the fact that the kavur was able to take place the same day, on Friday before Shabbos. Chaim Gewurtzman told me afterwards that the detective who was involved in the investigation said that, listen, you could try to get this through, all the red tape, but it's not going to happen. Good luck. And after Baruch Hashem, everything came through on the same day. Then he told Chaim he'd never seen such a thing. He's never seen, the saying goes that the wheels of justice turn slowly. He's never seen the wheels of justice turn that fast. The chesed of Hashem that we saw throughout this. And there's another piece that I want to be makdim. I want to say that I feel it behooves me to say. I cannot say it. The chesed that we personally experienced, the chesed of those around us. For a person to wake up and your child's not breathing, and from the beginning of the day, the Hatzalah was there in an instant. I'm not exaggerating. I opened the door. The first Hatzalah member was already there. The 6 Hatzalah members who came. Well, I want to especially mention. I'm not going to name them, but I want to mention the Hatzalah member who stayed behind with my wife when I went to the hospital. I also want to mention the Hatzalah member who took me in his car, not an easy job to do, to bring me to the hospital, following the ambulance. I want to be makar tov to them for their chesed. I want to mention Chaim Gewurtzman, I mentioned before, who from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, in the hospital, in the ambulance, with the kavura, with the police department. I want to mention Dr. Schwartz, otherwise known as Mo, who came down and was with us in the morning in the hospital. I want to also specifically mention the staff of St. Mary's, the Waterbury Police Department, the medical examiner, the courtesy and the sensitivity that they extended to us. And it wasn't easy, obviously, and it wasn't really what we wanted to be, who we wanted to be talking to, but they extended us every courtesy, and we're makar tov for that. And they should know that. I want to mention also the Rav, Rabbi Sonnenschein, for being with us throughout, for being present for us throughout that day, and since then, and before then, really, I should say. And then that really came, it hit home. And also Mr. Sonnenschein, who was at the house, at my house with us for most of the day. It was a short Friday. You have to excuse my Yiddish, but the Iber Gegebenkeit, that the selfless giving that she did, and it didn't stop on Friday. It's been since then. We're marketing for that. Agav, I think it's high time that I'm not sure what this Mr. Sunshine thing is. I think it should be Rebbe's and Sunshine. Just Agav. Make a note of that. I want to mention also Dr. Barfeld on vacation, back and forth the whole Friday, calling us the week after, checking on us. Those who came over in the morning, a woman with several children, I'm not going to mention her name, a girl, Chesed runs in her family, came over in the morning to ensure that my children should be able to have somewhat of a normal day. Mrs. Handelsman, who's been coordinating for us since then, tremendously übergegeben. Yeshiva Ketana, on that day, I know there were phone calls back and forth. We weren't even able to be involved, but between the Moras and the principal and those who came over to take a chayes for my children, the thought and the sensitivity that they put into how to handle this then and since then, the Chesed Girl program, the Bikur Cholim program, Mamash been tremendous. Again, I'm not going to mention names here. The 3 women and the 4 men who took time on Friday afternoon to give her the Kavod Achron. They know who they are. The friend who with a lot of wisdom, on Friday afternoon, was over by us and took our camera to develop pictures that we should remember her in her life and not remember how she looked at the end, which gave us a tremendous amount of chizuk. The women who came over and dealt with the things that needed to be dealt with, that they wanted to spare us from having to deal with. Remarkable to them, our friends. My chaverim, I want to specifically mention Moshe Wilner and his mishpacha for their chizuk. I want to also mention my chaverim. I have a lot of chaverim here, a lot of chaverim in the room, a lot of chaverim in town. But I want to mention a few people who have been there and continue to be there. Bill Weiner, Nachum Parnas, Yehuda Joslet have been there for me. My parents and my in-laws going through their own tsar. My parents are here tonight. The tsar they're going through, and through that they're being there for us. My brothers and brothers-in-law, my sisters and sisters-in-law, coming from far and near to be mechazik us. And again, I want to reiterate what's going on over here. Finally, I want to mention what we've been experiencing here. Dozens and dozens of people called, texted me, my wife, husbands, wives, visited, food, supper, dropping things off, on and on and on. It's every single person, it's a chizuk. And everyone should know that. And if you can't find the words, then you just came over and it's a chizuk. Everything is a chizuk. Baboiker chastecha. Well, Lamaisa, we have to get to the V'amnoscha bar Leilis. What's the V'amnoscha bar Leilis? How are we to find the context, to find a way in which to relate to such an occurrence? So the first thing that came to my mind, for Shabbos, afterwards, by my grandfather's Levaya, 6-7 years ago, my great uncle, Rabbi Melech Blus Zatzal, we were all in Flatbush for many years, dying, the big Talmud of Rav Moshe. He said over He said over from Rav Moshe that the pasuk says in Azinu, "Hatzur tamim pa'alei." Hashem is the tzur, the rock, tamim pa'alei. All his work, his deeds, his actions, pula, I don't know, however you translate that, they're perfect. There's no mistakes. There's no bugs in the software. Everything fits together. There's no mistakes. Ask to Moshe, but you come to a levaya, you come to a shiva, you come to a tragedy. People are crying, people are tzibachin, people are down, people are mourning. And what is this? What do you mean? Don't we know Atzur Tamim Pa'alei? Isn't that the truth? So Moshe said, it's true. It's absolutely the truth. Atzur Tamim Pa'alei. But we miss them. There's a void where that person used to be in our life, in our hearts. There's a void, something missing. And so, and that's the sadness. It's not meaning to say, Rav Moshe is saying that there's two separate things. And one has nothing to do with the other. On the one hand, there's Atzur Tamim Pa'alei. We know that there's no mistakes, and it wasn't a mistake, and there aren't any mistakes. But on the other hand, there's a sadness that we experience, that we feel, and it takes time, and there's pain, and we feel that pain. And if we mix these two things together, then you have to keep them separate. They're not the same thing. So much chas v'shalom have a kasha, or the other way. Someone will say, "What do you mean? What are you sad? Don't be sad." Suppress how they're feeling. That's also not good. There's two separate things, and they run on two separate tracks. But we have to remember, Atzur Tamim Pa'alei. There's no question. An occurrence like this is not calling that into question, chas v'shalom. Rabbi Kaufman, the Shiva told me over that halacha, I didn't know this halacha. He said, you're not allowed to say in a base oval, you're not allowed to say, if I were Hashem, I would have maybe, done that, like Hashem's like, oh man, you're right, I realized. You're not allowed to say that, it's asur. Because there's no such a thing. Someone in my family mentioned to me, like, if this would have happened a few days later, there would have been she was 3.5 weeks, there would have been a levaya, there would have been a shiva, there would have been, a proper process, or whatever you want to call it. And I said, but it wasn't supposed to be that way. This is how long this neshama needed. She had to be here for 3.5 weeks. And she wasn't supposed to be here for longer than that. None of that was supposed to occur. I was talking about dugma. I was thinking about, imagine a mother. My mother would say, it's such a shame. If you would be growing the way you grew when you were 14 and 15 and 11 and 12, you'd probably be like 9 feet by now. Like, chaval that you're not 9 feet. Such a shud. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. So, it's the same thing over here. If she would have, what do you mean if she would have? She wasn't supposed to. Tzur Tamim Pa'alei. It's hard though, because there's so much tzar. You feel the tzar. You feel the pain. So we saw Salanter, Chavetz Chaim brings from Yisrael Salanter, Hatzur Tamim Pa'alei ki chol derach v'mishpat. That means that he gives an analogy. When you go to secular court, or when you go to human court, I should say, when you go to Midas Basar V'Dam, so somebody steals, so they take him to court and they bring out all the evidence, the prosecutor, etc., and they sentence him 5 years in prison. And then the wife comes in and says, what about me? And this is going to happen to me, and the parents, and all the friends. And the judge says, sorry, he stole, he's got to go to prison. That's the way it works. It's not that I can't take into account the fact that your wife is going to now suffer, and your friends, and your boss, and it doesn't make a difference. But by Hashem it doesn't work that way. By Hashem says, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, that sometimes Hashem will defer punishment for someone who deserves it because the people around him don't deserve it. It's not, all the ripples are taken into account. And Hashem says if someone out there, one of the ripples all the way out, is going to be affected and it doesn't make sense, it doesn't pass that they should have that repercussion, then Hashem says, okay, we're going to defer it. Well, I'll deal with him in Olam Hamas, but we're going to defer. Everything fits together. So yeah, so she had her tafkid. She came down, and the effect that I'm having, and that my wife is having, and that everybody here is feeling, the ripples, is all part of. Is also Talmud Pa'ala is also part of that. Not a stira. Sometimes we think we can know the cheshbonos. We think we can perceive what's really happening. Chazal say, I think it was a Bekiva that the Malachim came to, the Gemara brings it down, I think. The Malachim said to Hashem that after Bekiva's Ptira, Bekiva? This is Zutar of Zuschar, how could this be? And Hashem said, if you ask me another question, I'm going to bring the world to Slave Avodah. And everybody asks, well, how does the answer the question? What does one do with the other? And the answer given famously is that the Chofetz Chaim gives the mashal. Somebody comes into shul on Shabbos, he's a guest in a town, and he sees by Kriyas Torah, this guy gets that aliyah, this guy gets that aliyah. It's mamish random. This one Mizrach gets this, and somebody from the Schlepper gets shlishi, and Maftir, he can't figure out, right? So he's looking around, and he goes over to the guy afterwards, and he says, I don't understand, do you have a cheshbon here? Are you thinking about who you're giving aliyahs to? Like what's going on here? And the guy says to me, you fool, you walked in today and you think you can figure everything out? This guy had yahrzeit, this guy he made a simcha, and this guy this, and this guy, everything had a cheshbon. You happen to have been here 1 week, and you think that, so you don't know all the cheshbonos. You don't know all the cheshbonos, but the cheshbonos are there. So the Chofetz Chaim says, this pshat in the Gemara, that Hashem says, if you want me to explain to you why everything happened, I have to go all the way back to the beginning and take it apart, and I can explain it to you. We don't know the cheshbonos. Mashal that I thought of, indulge me. You have a warship. Let's say a battleship. Battleships went out a long time ago. So we'll use a battleship, and then you have a captain on the battleship, and he's out at sea. He's getting instructions from fleet headquarters. He has intelligence coming in from his ship. He has cheshbonos. He knows what's going to happen. He has enemy intelligence. He's making a lot of cheshbonos, and then he has to decide what to do, where to go, fight nisht. And he takes everything into account, and he sends down the order. Okay, full ahead, right? So the order goes down the chain, and there's a sailor all the way down at the bottom of the ship over there who sits by the boiler, and he's cranking it up and cranking it down, right? And the order comes down full ahead. Imagine he would start cheshboning. I think that I don't see why we do full ahead over here. I think we should really go left. I'm just going to turn up the right boiler. We'll go left. I think that's what makes sense. And he'd be thrown out. There's no such a thing. You don't know what the cheshbonos are. Your job is to carry out your job. That's the only way for a yid to come to terms with something like this. We have our job. We don't pick our assignments. L'maisa, okay, good. Tortam ba'alai, wonderful, good. What do we do with that? How do we respond? How does the yid respond? No, it's not for me to say. There are people coming after me who, if anybody, they should say. I'm not going to come here and tell people that this and that. Not my place. I could just tell you what I was makabel for my rebbeim in situations like this. The first thing is that there's no einish, there's no din. We're not chas v'shalom. We don't think of such a thing like that. And that's 100%. That's not in question. It's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about which avera did we do that caused it chas v'shalom. But like we said before, something like this happens. It's an extraordinary occurrence. It's not a normal thing to happen, and it doesn't happen by accident. And all the ripples are there, and there's a reason for all the ripples. Every one of us. So we have to find some type of takeaway. We have to be able to bring it into our own and shtaigois. A yid searches for for the lesson. The Yid always searches for the lesson that he can glean out, he can take out. So that's the Emunah B'Leilos, right? What can we take out of this? This is Shama. People are telling me, my Rashiva told me, others, Chashav people have told me, this neshama is a special neshama. These types of neshamas, they come down for a specific purpose, and then they go back up to Shemayim. The neshama came down, she had a purpose, she took care of the purpose, she went back up to Shemayim. We all came down here for a purpose. We're all here for something. Mesil Sharm, Aleph Beis Mesil Sharm. Everybody knows Mesil Sharm. We quote the Mishnah Novice. That Olam HaZedaim of the Proizdor, Olam HaBodaim of the Traklin. This world is a corridor. We're only passing through. The Iker, what we're going for is Olam Haba. That's where we're headed, and that's what we're here for. But it's hard. It says in Mesil Sharm, it's hard. Because the Proizdor, the corridor, is filled with distractions. It's filled with obstacles. It's filled with pitfalls. The Chinuch says by the mitzvah of Tefillin, fascinating Chinuch. He says, what's the shirish of the mitzvah of Tefillin? He mentions tzitzis and mezuzah as well in this context. He says that a person, be'etzem, a person is a guf, is a chumristic creation. And the neshama is sent down into the guf, into the world. The world is chumrius, the world is gashmius, the world is gufnius. So the neshama is sent down into the world, but the neshama is out of its comfort zone. The neshama belongs, it's comfortable, it's at rest, it's at ease up in Olam Hamis. It's not comfortable here. And it's drowning. It's drowning in the chumrius. And its voice is being drowned out. So the Rabbeinu Shalom gave the mitzvahs of tefillin, the mitzvahs of tefillin, tzitzis, mezuzah, as the Chinuch writes, as shoymrim, as outposts, maybe we could call it, for the neshama to be able to draw ruchnius from, and be able to be menatzeach, be victorious, do its job. One time I taught this chinuch in camp a few years ago, and I gave a mashal. If you have a sports team, and, sometimes you play at home, sometimes you play away. You play an away game. You have the neshama is playing a whole life. They're playing an away game. There's a whole stadium full of 70,000 fans who are all rooting against the neshama. So the whole world's filled, and then the tefillin, the mezuzah, the tzitzis, that's like the 100 die-hard fans who follow the team all the way around the country, and they go to every game, no matter where it is. And then that gives the team a chizuk that they're able to fight on and be able to play to the best. That's what it is. Mesil Sharm says a similar idea in the midah of Zrizus. He says, Teva of the Adam is covered more, is heavy. People like status quo, physically and mentally also. Like, well, I don't want to think about that. I'll just go. I hope nothing happens. I hope it'll be okay. It'll be fine. Right? We like the status quo. We're heavy. We don't like to move or move out of our comfort zone. And says somebody wants to be zoiche in avodas Hashem, these gaber negative, he has to strengthen himself against the teva. Because he says, if he leaves himself, if he lets, okay, I'm doing it right, it's fine, it's fine, nothing really is going to happen, I don't need to prepare for that so much, I'll give that chabura and I'll prepare a little bit, whatever, it'll be fine. I'll go to that meeting. I really need to prepare, I'll go into Rosh Hashanah. I'll try to make a Kabbalah. I don't know. I'll think about it during Musaf. I'll think about what I want to Kabbalah for next year. Musaf Rosh Hashanah. I'll think about it now. To work on it and think and do a whole cheshbon and nefesh. So Says the Mesilas Yesharim, Vadahu shelo yatzliach. A person leaves himself biyad k'vidusa. He leaves himself alone, and he lets himself into that. He doesn't shake himself out of it. He's not going to be matzliach. And the reason is to take that on, to turn the teva on its head, and break out of the teva, and be able to be miskaber. The Gemara says that the Yosef, the son of Rabbi Shmuel Levi, he got sick and he went up to Shemayim. So he came, he had a dream. I don't know exactly. And he comes back and his father says, "So what did you see up there?" And he says, "The famous Gemara, Olam Hafar Chu'isi." I saw an upside down world. So I thought about the Gemara and I said, the more sometimes you'll sometimes in learning or just your Charusa will tell you something and you'll be like, okay, I would say it a little bit differently. But sometimes he'll tell you something and you'll be like, no. You have it completely, you're completely off the wall, like no shaykhs. And you have this in life also. Sometimes someone will show you like, let's say, a design for something. I want it to look this way. He'll say, like, I think you should correct it a little. I think it should be a little bit this way. Sometimes he'll be like, this whole design is wrong. The whole thing is wrong. So the Yosef didn't say that the world over there looks different than he said. So it's upside down. Everything is completely turned on its head in Olam Amis. It's completely on its head. So what's the takeaway? Very nice, hashkafa. So I want to tell you what happened on Thursday, the day before Shiva Kayla was niftaris. She woke up in the middle of the day before I got home. I was home alone with the baby, and she wakes up and she looks around like a newborn does, and she starts to focus. That first time when they first focus, you see them, their eyes, and then she focused. So she focused it on my wife. My wife's, it's a milestone. My wife was excited. She started talking to her. And she tells her, all the things a mother tells a child. And then she starts saying, she says the following. She says, Shifra Kayla, you came from Shemayim, where everything is emes. You came down here, and here it's an upside down world. Everything's upside down. It's very unfamiliar to you. And the main thing is Torah and mitzvahs. Mommy and Tati are here, to help you. She says, we'll help you, learn your way through here. She says, we're all going to go back to Shemayim in the end. We're here to serve the Rabbi Shalom. And she stopped and, what did I just say? What did I just say? Like, where did that come from? What was happening was that there was a neshama of a mother talking to the neshama of a child. My wife realized she was talking to her neshama. Little baby comes out, that age, they don't know from candy, they don't know from staying up late, they don't know from Kain Zachnish, they don't know from anything. It's just a neshama, that's what it is. Rabbi say, that I could say anything. The Rabbi Shalom is talking to our neshamas. He's telling us to stay focused. Every person has their challenges. There's a thing. I have a list as long as my arm. But we have our things, and we sweep them under the rug. They will, it's fine. Okay, I shouldn't have said that to her. Okay, whatever. I should have been on time to say to her. Okay, fine. But sometimes the Rebbeinu Shalom comes to us and he speaks directly to our neshama and he says, "You're getting lost. There's a lot of obstacles in the corridor, in the praise door, but you're getting lost. Don't get lost. Remember, stay focused." Everyone has that challenge that they're not confronting. Everybody said, what would be a chizuk for us, for the family, People should confront it. Take that thing that we're not confronting and confront it. Make a Kabbalah. Small Kabbalah. Small Kabbalah has tremendous koyach, because what it does is it cracks the wall, makes a little hole, and then you can work from there. Don't make something too big, make something small. Everybody knows their own. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this, that. I have my avodah, everyone has their avodah. It's not my place to identify a specific thing. But everyone should walk out, or walk away from this experience that we're all going through together. And again, I want to be makar toiv that I told a few people over the course of the past 10 days that the Olam here is carrying us. That's what we feel. The Olam is continuing to carry us. But this is what we can take away. This will be a chizuk for us. We can keep on steiging away. And we're in Ikvus of the Mashiach. And Hashem is rallying the troops for the last push. Let's move in the right direction. Let's take this and take a chizuk out of this. And Hashem, we shouldn't know of any more tzar, and we should be able to greet Mashiach to the kingdom. Amen, amen.
It was very hard when I tried to prepare to speak to have something which I thought would be appropriate to say. And after Rebelli, it's about 10 times harder. We'll say it this. Two things, two nekudas. Lail was speaking a little bit before, set up from Reb Luth, and I want to say a little bit my nusach, a little bit different. You find in Tehillim, in Habakkuk, in other svarim, a discussion, a krechts, by Yisurim, a tzaddik v'raloi. You find the Nevi'im, Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, David HaMelech, Moshe Rabbeinu, Lo me're'esu lo mezeh, Lo me'yech rabcha ba'amecha, Lo me'ad mosai tenaf l'netzach. You find questions. They ask questions. I was speaking by a vand, Takatu b'chenes, like Rabbi Leo said. But the nusach hazay. You have a question. How does Hashem have a right to do such a thing? That question doesn't exist. Mishpatei Hashem emes. You have a question, it's not fair, it's not right, it's not just. There's no such question. There never was such a question, there can't be such a question. The question doesn't exist. The Nevi'im would never ask such a question, and Tehillim wouldn't say such a question. Amol, you'll have a question, no, a bataka, a mensch, in rare occasions like the Ramban says, Taka, tzaddik, so where do Yisurim come from? Yeah, you've discussed it, good. It's a question. Mar Brachas talks about it. If Moshe Rabbeinu was able to understand it, if he wasn't able to understand it. Yeah, not. Aber serious Shiloh came like a taina, a complaint, a curse against the Mishpatei Hashem. Doesn't exist. But the world has two tracks. There's a track of Schar V'Einish, of Mishpat. Mishpat Echad Rabbah. The Eibishter has his Mishpatim. There's another track of Yichud Hashem. We have a relationship with Hashem. Hashem's our Father. Hashem's our Melech. We're His Avadim. We're His children. Amalek gives a patch. They can give a cracks. What was that about? What? When? Not, was it b'mishpat? That was b'mishpat. Abba, Lami Yomi Wagayim. Where does it fit? How are we supposed to understand it? We want to see the Gilui of Hashem. We don't see it. It's a hester upon Him. There we could have a cracks. Says Vayida Marin, another Vanavi died. He got schar. Because it wasn't appropriate at that time and place. Abamol, the irrigation, Keli, Lama Zaftani, the irrigation you're allowed to have. Not the pshat, is it b'mishpat? Avad is b'mishpat. Everything is b'mishpat. But is Zichar Hashem coming out of it? In the yachas we have with Hashem. That's where we can have the tzar. And you find, interesting thing, we don't have a veilus over the P'tir of Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKayin, over the P'tir of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi or Vashi, because we see Begilui, what they were supposed to do, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Shvatim. We see Begilui, what they were supposed to do, they did it, and good. Avada went and iftar, Avada is a tzar, is an avelus, but we don't have an avelus l'deiris. But Mashal Nadav Avihu, it says, someone who cries for Nadav Avihu gets schar. Yeshio HaMelech, Eikainin Imiyos Yeshio. You have an Indian of an avelus l'deiris. If you don't see Avada, and we always right, Avada is a tafkid, there's a tachlis, and this and that, and everything is b'mishpat, and every drop is b'mishpat, and everything is, and we don't know the plan. The Olam Hazeh, it's Nichtav B'Yud Kei, Nikra B'Alef Dalet. We don't, finished, we don't have the shleimus, we don't have it. When we don't see the tachlis, it's taka meridik etzar, which we're allowed to have. When we understand, it's not the pshat that the Eibush did anything shalei b'mishpat, unfair, but there's a hester upon them, there's a tzar, there's an evil. And we'll mechazik ourselves, Avad, here's the tachlis. And Avad Allah Salava will understand. In this matzah, a matzah invest upon him. Rabbi was also very stark about when such a thing happens, you have to Messiah L'tshuva. That's richtig. Rambam says in the beginning of Ilchas Tainus, every tzara has to be, you have to understand, it's Midai Ki HaTshuva, L'zikul Ariyah, Avada. One hergish, which I think, if we could get a Pesekinyan, it could bring a gewaldige oir into the cheshech, and that could be a big chizuk for us all. I don't have anything bezunda azay. When you're dealing with Darkei HaTshuva, Amol, there's a problem, and you have to highlight the problem and misaken the problem. That I don't have anything bezunder like Rabbi Lail said. Everyone has their own thing. And you can mechazik and kama v'kama and yonim and Torah and tefillah and in yonei mamain and in yonei tznius, kedusha, kama things, midas davis. But one hergish, and adarabah, because I don't think there's any problem. I think it's kedai to focus on it and to make up as a kinyan nafshi. The mile of Shalom, the Rambam says at the end of Hilchas Chanukah, Kol HaTorah kula nitno asa Shalom ba'olam. Shalom is one of the most yisoidistic Zachen. And befrat, to Menei Tzaris Amachlis, Rashi says in Chumash that the Dara Mabla was really not as bad as the Dara Flaga. The Dara Flaga was much worse. They didn't get an Einish Koseu B'Shalom. The Dara Mabla was Machlekes, Malamich, Zonei HaMachlekes V'Gadol HaShalom. When such things happen and we gather together and we understand that we're really one Kehillah, there is Be'etzim, a tremendous Achdus in the Kehillah. And it's times like this that we feel it most. And I just want to be Matzia, that people should focus, be Ma'ayin, be Mizbainin, on the mile of Shalom, the mile of Achdus. The Motzah Kadosh Baruch Hu Kli Mazik Bracha Ala Shalom. Shalom is befat for Kehillah. Shalom is not just a pleasant experience where the Javad did very much is, but it's also something which is necessary for the Ruchnius, for the Aliyah, for everything. Machlekes brings down everyone. Everyone is Eisik and Machlekes it just kills the whole Aliyah of the Neshama in that. Shalom is something which Mamish brings up. Shalom doesn't mean just a lack of fighting. Shalom means an achdus, a feeling. Everyone has their part. A kavod, a kavod zeh lezeh. The understanding, all together, we're all a chabur achas. If we could remember these events, this moment, and have it as a reference point, in case there'll ever be an sign that maybe there'll be a period to remember, no, there can't be a period. We have to always be ba'achdas, we have to always be b'shalom, we have to always have a gewaltige derech eretz and covered one to the other. Understand that each person has their part, and it's only together that tzibur, each and every person is giving to the tzibur, and we have to be a tzibur of achdus. Ve'ibishu and melech v'sasif rashi yom yachad shiftei Yisrael. The Eibish is the melech when the klal is ba'achdus, the yachad shiftei Yisrael. That's the klal. This is what I think. This is my hergish. What I want to take out, and what I think the Ulam should take out, a hergish of achdus and shalom that will help us steig together and be able to berachtuch and everything we have to do. Shem yivarach asamei b'shalom.
B'shas the Rosh Hashiva, Maranan v'Rabbanan v'Rabbaisai. How incredibly different are we than the ummahs that surround us. Baruch Hu Elokeinu shebaranu lichvaydai vehivdilanu min atayim. When the nations of the world experience a tzara, a difficulty, an incident, so they look at the externals and they have all kinds of meetings and gatherings. How can we b'derech hateva make sure that this would never happen again? That's not the way Klal Yisrael looks at an incident that happens to a Yid. We go straight to the core, straight to the shayrish, straight to the ultimate shayrish hadavar, which is the Rabbeinu Shalom Alein, and we gather together and ask ourselves, what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu asking from us? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who loves us, Ava Rabba Avtanu, Avas Olam Beis Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who loves us so much, what is He trying to tell us with this difficult and hard to swallow and tsar-filled incident? And of course, as was mentioned, to start picking particular things, you need people that are gadol b'chachma u'b'minyan. But one thing is universal, that when a difficulty hits, when a tzara happens, when something painful occurs, that there's a nisayon to actually handle that nisayon the way the Rabbeinu Shalom wants us to. In the nisayon alein is the nisayon. To absorb what happened with emunah, with bitachon, with the proper chashivas, with the proper response, as we heard about earlier. It's fascinating. The Gemara says that when Rabbi Akiva was killed, it was Yatzas Nishmasai be'echad. So Rabbi Akiva said Kriya Shema. At the time of his Petira, he was being killed by the Malchus, and he said Kriya Shema. Why did he say Kriya Shema? So I always thought he said Kriya Shema because he was being killed, Al Kiddush Hashem, and people that are being killed, Al Kiddush Hashem, say Kriya Shema. At the time of a Petira, one says Kriya Shema. But that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara in Daf Samach Aleph in Brachas says, B'shah shahitziu Rabbi Akiva lahariga, Zman Kriya Shema hoya. It was time to say Kriya Shema. There's such an oimik to that. That means that Rabbi Akiva is in a matzav that the Malchus is literally tearing him apart. And he's oblivious to that. Zman Kriya Shema. It's time to daven. Yeah, but we're in the middle of killing you. Zman Kriya Shema, I'm sorry. Zman Kriya Shema. Zman Kriya Shema haya. We march forward. We continue to do what we need to do. With strength, like soldiers. By the Levaya of Reb Chaim Volozhin, I heard B'Shem and Adam Gadol that he said that the Shtat Magid in Vilna said over the following ha'ara. He said that the Gemara says in Tainis Daf Chavtes that at the time of the Churban, the Pirchei Kahuna, the young Kohanim, took the keys of the Heichal and they threw it up to Shamayim. And a hand came down, a yad came down and caught the keys. So he said that that's not a maila in the Kohanim. They were talking then, Reb Chaim Volozhin was nifter, and they didn't know how they were going to move forward with this yeshiva. What's the next step for this yeshiva? And he was saying, we don't give back the keys. Even if it's the house is falling around us, even if it's so confusing, so painful, so overwhelming, We don't throw the keys back. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us keys, and we continue to do the avodah. We don't return the keys. Somebody showed me that the Pnei Menachem in Parshas Devarim, Tafshin Nun Daled, says that this Gemara is the yad that we talk about when we say Umipnei Chatoeinu Golinu Me'artzeinu V'nisrachaknu Me'al Admoseinu. Why? Mipnei Hayad Shenishtalcha B'mikdashenu B'mikdashecha. The yad that was nishtalach into the mikdash was that yad that caught the keys, that took the achrayas away from the kayanim. We don't pater ourselves from the avodah. Zman Kriya Shema hoya. It's time to say Kriya Shema. We march weiter. We continue our mission. We embrace our tafkid without questions, with emunah, with bitachon, with simchas achayim. We're a stubborn group, Klal Yisrael, and we stubbornly march forward. I was very overwhelmed. I went with my wife to visit the Meyerfelds on Lail Shabbos. That Lail Shabbos. And they were doing what Klal Yisrael does on Lail Shabbos. They were eating a Shabbos Suda. Where do Yidden get strength like that? Their entire world turned upside down. Their hearts are torn. And they sit down. It looked like a very beautiful Suda, I think, probably courtesy of the community. It was a beautiful, regular Sudas Shabbos. We don't return the keys. We don't stop the Avodah. Shabbos arrived. We have a Suda to make. We have children to be mechanech. We have tefillas to daven. We have Torah to learn. We march forward. We're soldiers. When my wife lost her father about 6 years ago, so at some point, a few weeks later, she called our Rebbetzin, and she was expressing how difficult it was. What a tough tkufa it was. And so sensitive. Like the Musar and the Rachamim woven together. The Rebbetzin lowered her voice and Kemat whispered to her, "We're soldiers." She said it a drop louder, it wouldn't have been able to be niskabel. But she whispered, "We're soldiers. We march weiter." We're shaken, but our emunah doesn't shake. We're shaken, but our bitachon doesn't shake. We're shaken, but our mission, our tafkid, our goals don't shake. We have a mission here, and here in town we have a mission. We have a mission to build a kehila of mishpachos that are davuk to Torah, that are meticulous in Kiyam HaMitzvahs, and all in an environment of Ava, Achva, V'Shalom, V'Reyos, as the Rav mentioned. And that's certainly when we are absorbing and feeling, receiving from the Rebbeinu Shalom a difficult patch. that we gather our strength. Zman Kriya Shema Haya, we gather our strength and we remain focused on our mission, and without question we march forward. So despite, as a kehillah, so many of us hurting and being shaken from what's happened, from what's happening, we remember that Zman Kriya Shema Haya, and we will never, ever give back the keys. Yashakayach.